All right, it is another great day to be alive here with Younger Life Live. Rick Federici, Mary Anthony. Mary!
I know, it's a beautiful Monday.
Woo! I love it.
It really is. You know, it's I love the snow.
So do I.
I loved it. It was a nice drive in and it was just gorgeous. The trees coming right down this road too. Oh
I
my
know.
goodness. It's just beautiful. I love
I
it.
said not only was it beautiful, but even on my ride in, today I got up about 1:15, 1:20. Normally
crazy.
it's 1:40, just so you ladies know. And I'm normally on the road coming in from Schaumburg every day, about 100 miles this way. I thought it was going to be crazy. It was a normal day. They
Really?
actually did the roads perfect. We got pummeled about 10 inches, through the weekend, 10 plus. My daughter's up at WMU doing the nursing thing, and she said it has not stopped yet snowing.
Wow.
So it's been going on from Friday all the way through the weekend till today.
Yeah, there's a lot of snow. And we were out on the roads yesterday to take home some extras that we had in the four-wheel drive. And I was surprised how rough the roads still were.
Yes.
You know, I thought, wow, I realized it was still snowing, but I kind of thought typically they're right on it. And I think they were trying. It's just hard, and it dumped a lot faster than I think we expected it to.
No matter if you're on the whole shoreline of Chicago, up along Northwest Indiana, Southwest Michigan, going downstate, we all know how the wonderful worlds of snow and weather. You know what I'm saying? Whether it's from Illinois to Indiana into Michigan. But I'm really excited as we round out our final live week here with Younger Life Live.
I know, it's
brought
crazy.
to you by our good buds at the LaPorte Hospital.
It's hard to believe it's been a year already.
Unbelievable.
I can't get over it. It's been an awesome year, and I'm really excited about this week. We have some really great shows, and today this has been a show we've been talking about since the beginning. We're talking about some serious issues with advanced directives and kind of finding more out about that and about our own medical records and hospital personnel that we can turn to for assistance. So.
I'm so glad that you have lined these two ladies up. You've done a phenomenal job all year long helping gather our guests and quite honestly put them into motion. First off with Brendan, and of course as we evolved through the year with Karen and Dirk and Brittany and the crew. So it's really, really awesome to have these two ladies. What an honor. Why don't you introduce our two guests here, or let them do that, and then we'll jump into the show.
Well, we have Rhonda and Jessica with us, and we'd like you to introduce yourself. Tell us what your role is at the hospital, if you don't mind.
Well, I'm Jessica Dickinson. I'm a nurse. I'm the director of case management at LaPorte and Stark Hospital. I've been with the hospital for about 10 years. Maybe not quite 10, but I've been in the case management department for almost 7, and I've been the director for 3.
Wow. How about yourself, Rhonda?
I'm Rhonda Willis. I'm the Director of Health Information Management and the Privacy Official for the organization, and I've been with the organization 22 years.
Wow. To our
crazy.
ladies and to our medical professionals, this is awesome. This
Oh,
is
it
what
is.
it's all about.
Absolutely, and it's constantly evolving, especially in the medical field in general. Things change so much, so fast. And I've known Rhonda a long time, and just the changes that have gone on just in the medical records aspect is enormous, how much things have changed. And it's just, so it can be a little confusing for the layperson, the normal person that doesn't really know a little bit about what we should be knowing and how to be proactive in our own healthcare, I think. So, we said it before, you have to be your own advocate, and this is another way this is information you need to be able to do that. So
now I want to throw this out there. You have mentioned this before on Younger Life Live, brought to you by the LaPorte Hospital. A little bit, your background, obviously years ago, you worked at the hospital.
I worked part-time in medical records, and I loved it. I did. I was there for 9.5 years by the time that I left, which seems crazy because it really flew by.
How could that be if you're only 25?
I know. Who wouldn't love to come to work every day and hear that? Yeah, right. So I did. It was wonderful. It was a great department, great team. Rhonda was the director then too, and she runs a great department. It was a lot. It was a great work environment, but I can't believe the things that I learned being there that there seem like common sense when we're working in it, but how foreign it seems to a person that's just never been involved with even accessing their own records or their children's or their parents or anyone's. So right from the beginning, I said, we need to do a show about this because it's just so important. And a lot less headaches all the way around for not only the medical records staff who is trying to educate people, and typically they get aggravated as far as a person wanting information that they aren't able to get right away. And so, people finding out now is a great way for everybody to be a little happier and, take that stress off. It's one less thing to worry about, honestly, when an issue arises. Typically, that's the problem. Someone doesn't realize they need it until they're already in, either already in the hospital or their loved one is, and that's rough. So.
You had mentioned a phrase, and I figured I've got three very intelligent women around me. That's why I like to surround myself with great people so I can just kind of bounce off what you ladies are saying. But you had mentioned advanced directives. You had thrown that out there, so I'm going to throw it to you. And I know that you ladies want to jump into some of this, so let's jump into it.
Yes, we would love if you would tell us. Advanced directives is kind of a broad term. If you could kind of tell us what all that it actually includes.
Okay, so the advanced directives includes appointment of a healthcare representative, a living will, and a declaration for life-prolonging procedures.
Okay. Can you explain a little bit about, I guess I would say, how that works just for the average person? Like, can we pick that apart?
Well, I'd love to break it down if that's
Yes.
okay. Can we start with the living will? What exactly is a living will?
Sure. So the living will is a document that you would complete that states if you were to become terminally ill and were expected to die within a short period of time, the form would tell your doctor that you wouldn't want to be given any artificial treatments that would prolong your life.
Okay. So in the living will, should you have specific details about medical procedures, not just, like the feeding tube? Is that what you're meaning? You should actually state those specific things out?
There is a component of the living will that will address nutrition and hydration. So you can choose to have it, not to have it, or not make a decision either way.
Okay. And can a person with a living will still receive pain meds? I was surprised by how often that has actually come up because nobody wants to be in pain or know that their loved one's in pain.
Yeah, so they can. We would still want to provide the medication necessary to provide that comfort care or to alleviate the pain that the person might be having.
I see. I think that's probably the living will in general is probably the most common advanced directive people think of, right? I mean, do you find that when you're approaching the subject with patients or patients' families at all, advanced directives, they automatically go to living will? Is that?
I think it's assumed that they automatically go to the living will, but again, the healthcare rep is another important piece.
Absolutely.
I think the living will is the one that is most common that most people know about and think of when you say advanced directive. I think healthcare representative probably just isn't as known as much.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? What the, an appointment of healthcare representative is?
So the appointment of a healthcare representative, I think, is a really an important topic to address because this is something that you'd want to have arranged prior to an emergency. So this appointing a healthcare rep would be you would want to do that before you became unable to make decisions for yourself, because that's when the healthcare rep does go into effect. So in the state of Indiana, the law says that your spouse, your children, your siblings, they all have an equal authority in your healthcare decisions. So if something were to happen to you and you couldn't make those decisions, you really would want to appoint one person that knows what your wishes are and that can follow through with that.
I guess too, throwing this out there because a lot of us, I'm just going to be blunt, don't think about that. I come from a family of 6 children, and I have my own daughters; they're adults, but we have had that conversation and have sat down with them and said, here's what's going to happen, and everybody knows the drill, for lack of a better word, and they know what our wishes are. But do you find that a lot of folks do not have that in place? And I'll start there. Do you ladies find that?
Yeah, so it does happen when you have families. The patient can't make decisions for themselves. Everyone grieves differently, and so then that's when the disagreements come into play. So again, why the healthcare rep is so important.
Do you know my parents are morbid in the fact that they, when they're going to be going on vacation or anything, they constantly, revise documents on what they want. So, and they seal them because my sister and I are constantly saying, we don't we want to hear it. We just don't need to read out this really depressing document every time you go away for a weekend
Sure.
or something. So instead we find that they write them, they seal them, and then that way, at least if something were to happen, we would have something to reference as concrete documentation of what they actually want versus, and typically there's only two of us, so the chance of serious disagreements is a lot lower, but you still have it in families. Ricky being one of so many children, you can imagine it. I know your father has already passed, but if it were your mother and there were not, already things stated what was going to happen here, no sort of living will, no sort of advance directive or healthcare rep, I could see where that could get really sticky really fast. Everybody having their own opinion. Mm-hmm.
But
I could see this is that's why it's so important. It's such an important topic.
I'm so with you on that. And I feel as I get older at 50 right now, I feel that if I was in my 20s or 30s or even 40, even 45, I might have done this a little bit differently or the process. But I feel because all of us represent in, 3 boys, 3 girls, we all represent a different piece for mom and dad, in this case mom. So I think I would take a step back. I would give my opinion, but at the end of the day, that's the last thing personally for me.
Right.
I don't want to fight.
Nobody wants that.
I'm in a whole different mindset at that point.
Nobody wants that, but emotions are run high whenever there's something going on that's serious. Could you tell us the difference then between the healthcare rep and the living will? The living will states what your wishes are, correct? But the healthcare rep, you're appointing someone to make those choices in the event that you cannot, right?
Exactly. The living will basically states if I become terminally ill, I do not want life prolonging procedures, but keep me comfortable. I may or may not want nutrition on that form. That's that is something that someone would again complete before they became unable to. And then the healthcare rep would appoint a person to make those decisions when they become unable to. And there is a place on there where they can actually write their wishes. So important to pick someone that will comply with those
Can you
wishes.
pick more than one person?
While you can, it is not recommended. Again, you really would want to pick someone that is going to respect your wishes.
Yeah.
Rhonda, you kind of gave the look, but in a professional way. But you both had the look, and if you want to expand on that and then add to it, please.
I agree with everything she said.
Great.
I'm a huge fan of the healthcare representative. In fact, I even encourage husbands and wives to have the healthcare representative because the healthcare representative is everything that Jessica said, but there's also an added piece to that. It allows you to obtain copies of the medical record and other information if you're the healthcare representative. So a lot of times, a husband will come in and say, my wife is in the car, I'm here to pick up her results. Under the Indiana state law, a spouse cannot obtain copies of their spouse's medical record unless an authorization has been signed. And a healthcare representative, I call it your get out of jail free card, you can use it and they can obtain that. So I'm really a proponent of pushing healthcare representative for that reason. I'm also a fan of it. I have children in college. My son just recently graduated, but I'm a fan of that because I was their healthcare representative to be able to do that. Any kind of health care, obtain copies of test results, call and discuss a bill, pay a bill, those kind of things, anything related to health care.
Wow, that's a very interesting spin because I got a slap of reality as a father with my daughter who's a freshman in college, and they're like, I'm sorry, you have nothing to do with this anymore. And I'm like, whoa, who's the
parent?
Who's
paying the bill?
For it? That was the one you ladies are all
You
like,
know?
yeah. But at that same point, so you were the rep for your son, correct? And then at that point, God forbid something transpired, just to kind of reiterate, you were able to say, I need to see this, this, and this. You kind of were that rep, for lack of a better word, a rep, but you were able to see anything. Is that correct?
And I could do that even without
that's
him
good.
being incapacitated in any way. So
That's
he's
great.
away at college. We had a couple of situations, as you can imagine. And just little things like I needed to get copies of an x-ray or whatever. And so it was easy to make that healthcare representative and use that frequently. But yet, if in the event he did become incapacitated, then obviously his father and I would have made those decisions on what to happen in that regard.
Did you sign a piece of paper like through the college, or how did you, if you don't mind me asking as a parent?
Right. My
just
department has those papers.
Okay.
And so what happened is he actually signed it, and it has to be witnessed by someone other than me, and he designated that. And so we use that a lot for various aspects of obtaining those records. And a lot of people think of it more as what happens if I become incapacitated, which it is used in that situation, but it also allows you to obtain copies of the medical records and some of the day-to-day aspects.
Yeah.
I just had a parent in my office a couple weeks ago, and her daughter was away at college, and that was the situation. Her daughter had needed her to pick up her medical records, but under Indiana state law, once you turn 18, you're an adult,
Yes.
regardless of who is financially
that's a
responsible
good
for you.
point, though.
Absolutely right.
I always throw that in.
Well, you know, especially when you just say when they turn 18, a lot of children, you turn 18 still in high school, you know, your senior year typically. So, I mean, you know, and especially when your kid's still in high school or still regular school, you think you still have the power to do that, but that is no longer the case. And I think so many people don't realize that. I know I
Agreed.
didn't. Why would you, again, unless you're dealing with a specific issue and by then it's too late because they are, you know, away at school or something. I mean, high school, you just have to take the kid with you, but that's still, it's such a good point. I don't think people think of it as maintenance kind of stuff. We're not talking major issues, but these little things that you might need, something so silly as an x-ray, if you can't access it while they're away, how are you going to help things without this? So
To help facilitate that care.
That's
because
it.
often, even as an 18-year-old and 19-year-old, they look to their parents to help facilitate that medical care.
absolutely.
And so
And I want to be that person.
Sure.
Yeah.
I want to help.
Of course.
And I want to be involved.
Do you know, that does bring up a few good questions, though. Can a healthcare rep be changed or revoked? You know, say they sign that and then, okay, your son's a perfect example. He gets married and would like to appoint his wife as a healthcare rep. How does he null and void the current one that he has?
He just fills out a new one
Oh,
and
okay.
then redistributes it to where
see.
to the 5 places that he would have before.
Can you share with us those places? Because this is true for any advance directive, right? I think that's another mind-boggling thing. You think, okay, if we are able to get a form, which I'm assuming there's probably some forms on printable, right, online. If you were to do that and have it filled out properly, one, does it need to be notarized?
It does not need to be notarized.
Do you need an attorney?
Attorney is always recommended for review, but
Really?
not necessary.
Okay. And then who should you be giving these to? This is a key thing. I think people fill them out. I mean, I know we've had some elderly people, at least in my experience, fill them out and keep them. But that doesn't help anyone. I mean, that may help when someone's clearing out your stuff post-care. That's never good. Everybody needs to be aware of what
That's a
your
good
wishes
point.
are. So
That's a good point.
who should be getting them?
Well, first, obviously, you keep that copy for yourself.
Certainly.
You do want to give it to others. So you would want to give it to your physician. You would want to give it to your attorney if you had one. Definitely the medical records department. So that could be scanned into the electronic medical records so that if you ended up in the hospital, that we would have that. And a relative or a friend, most likely, that's going to be asked to give the instructions to
Okay.
physicians or hospitals.
This is just this little bit of information,
Mm-hmm.
I think, could be an eye opener for a number of folks, all different ages. And I think this is really, it's about being organized.
Mm-hmm.
Organization, the key to success, everybody out there, even the young ones. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I
When you're
think,
looking at
well,
this?
it's just my hope that it starts a conversation that sometimes isn't
Absolutely.
always, maybe isn't easy or isn't really, you don't think about it, but it's still so important to start that conversation somehow, you know, and hopefully just by hearing about it a little bit more, you might think, this is so important. This is important. What about if you're traveling? You know, you say the medical records department, that's perfect. What if you're out of town or out of state? Is it still valid?
It depends. The
Really?
advanced directives are state specific. Some will honor them, some won't.
good point.
So a good tip would be if you're going to spend a lot of time in that state, probably get those state specific forms
Like our snowbirds.
completed.
Right.
Perfect
You know, that's a
example.
great point. I'm almost thinking to myself, you ladies are talking about, you know, having a scanned version or, you know, not only at the hospital with your rep, but also I'm thinking if you're going on vacation, I would definitely check this thing. I would have never thought about that. Just thinking, oh, it's in place, but obviously state specific, but just to carry it with you in your luggage and or your purse and or on yourself.
I didn't realize that they were state specific. So are there any federal laws that govern advanced directives in general?
Not in general, the federal law is the Patient Self-Determination Act, which is,
Okay.
is just to ensure the right to self-determination in healthcare decisions, and the advanced directives fall under there.
The appointment of healthcare rep, just to clear up a few things, you hear so many different terms. You really do. Healthcare proxy is one I hear all the time, and that's never something we referred to it as when I worked in medical records. Is that the same thing, or is that an additional document?
So it is the same. So whether you're a power of attorney, a healthcare representative, a surrogate, whatever you are making the decisions for that patient, you are the healthcare proxy.
So power of attorney is the same thing?
It is not it is not the same thing,
Okay.
but again, healthcare proxy is a general term that can be used for any of those.
It's a portion of a power of attorney.
Power of attorney is very different in that power of attorney typically is related to business or financial information.
Okay.
So giving someone the ability to act on your behalf financially or in a business transaction. Sometimes power of attorneys do encompass healthcare. It just varies from power of attorney to power of attorney. There's not a one form fits all related
Yeah.
to power of attorneys.
Okay.
And so we have a lot of people that would show up in our department and say, well, I'm the power of attorney for Sally Joe. I'm here to get her records. We have to pull that power of attorney and say, okay, does it really address healthcare? If it does not, then really it's of no value to us in the healthcare industry at all.
Yeah.
That has got to be a little bit unique
Yeah.
for you ladies, because you are faced with at a point where you have got emotions flying around you
Definitely.
on 4 different levels.
Yeah.
And someone's coming to you. So that, that's got to take, you got to probably step back from stuff, because if someone's like exactly what you just said about power of attorney and being the rep, if it doesn't relate, you can't do it. You won't touch that.
It's
pretty much.
it's against the law, and I
that's
think
what
that's
I'm
what people don't understand. It's not the unwillingness of the release of information or the medical records staff or in general. It's illegal to release that information because every person has the right to have their records protected, and with that comes the other side of that, which means it can be a little more difficult. Not just anybody can come in and get it,
Sure.
which of course you don't want that. But, you have people that say, of course I don't want anyone to access my records, but my son came in there yesterday and he couldn't get it. Well, he's not allowed to. I don't care that, it's sad that you just got discharged from the hospital, but if you didn't sign paperwork to allow him to, he isn't allowed to have it.
That
I
was
think
a question that just came up on
Really?
the text was, if my child is 18 and living at home, not going to college, by the way, because I know we're talking a little bit about college and young adults that go away.
Yeah.
They basically still have to, this paperwork has to be filled out because they're 18. They're adults in the
That's
state of
it.
Indiana, correct?
That is correct. It
Okay,
doesn't
just
matter. We
wanna-
just use the college because the child is not there to actually
So
sign
agree, yes.
the form. But it doesn't matter if they live with you, down the street, another state, another city. It still applies. At 18, they are an adult, regardless of who is paying for them
That's
financially.
it.
I always add that because the parent always says, but I'm financially
I know.
responsible. And I understand that. But the state of Indiana says they are an adult at that point and have to make those decisions
Yeah.
themselves.
They have the right, and as the parent, I could see that being aggravating.
Oh, big time.
I could see that. I could see. There's been so many cases where we have people who I can completely sympathize their story and even empathize, been in similar situations, but it's still a law. This is still the rights. I'm curious. Jessica, if you don't mind, when we did, just since we touched on, say someone's discharged from a hospital, do you as case management discuss advanced directives when a patient comes into the hospital, or say even the authorization to have someone else pick up records? Do you discuss that with them upon discharge at all?
We discuss advanced directives upon admission. So
Okay.
patients that are admitted to the hospital, we ask them, do you have an advanced directive? And if you do not, would you like further information on that? If they do, then we will definitely go see the patient, talk about the advanced directives. A lot of the time they just want to sit back and think about it, and will call us back later. As far as release of information, again, if they fill out that healthcare rep, then that's something medical records can use. If not, we will always refer to medical records for those forms that need to be filled out.
Is it hard? I guess I'd ask all of you ladies, is it hard if one wants to get a copy of their test results? Like, how does somebody go about doing that?
That's perfect.
There's 3 different ways in which you can get a copy of your test results. You can even either contact the provider that ordered the test. So if they ordered that x-ray or lab results or whatever, you can contact that provider's office. Or you can come to the Health Information Management Department, otherwise known as the Medical Record Department, and sign an authorization. We have a new process to where we have a patient portal that will allow you to access that information 24/7 from the comfort of your own home.
Which is really nice.
Yes.
We did the heart cart screenings for part of the show, actually, but we just did them. Rick had done it actually live last year. And,
was awesome.
Yeah,
all
you know,
about-
and that was my first experience with the patient portal, and I was really impressed by the ease of it. You know, the hospital sends you an email and says, "Here, this is how you can access it," and so it's very safe and secure in that sense. I know a lot of people are a little nervous about electronic stuff like that, but I think the technology with this electronic medical record is so important because we were able to share that so much easier, and in the event that there is something seriously wrong, that information can be sent to those that needs it. It's so much quicker. It was just so easy, and I found that to be a wonderful way, a wonderful tool. I thought that was wonderful. The hospital, very ingenious, you know, kind of step it up a notch, and really I think people appreciate that a lot. Have you had much feedback on that aspect? Do you know?
You know, I think a lot of patients are just really unsure what the portal, what information is there, how will it be beneficial to me. Those that have actually signed up for it and use it, maybe, you know, they're very involved in their healthcare and maybe they need to monitor lab results or lab values or whatever, they tend to really love it. Others are a little more hesitant to use it. I really recommend it because you can access your records 24/7.
Right.
Hold on to that thought because we've got a call coming
sure.
in this morning. And let's go to the Star VIP hotline this hour, brought to you today by the LaPorte Hospital. It's Rick Federici and Mary Anthony. You're inside Younger Life Live right here on our radio partner, WIMS. Good morning, caller. You're on Younger Life. Please go ahead.
Hi, good morning. This is Roy.
Hi, Roy. What's up, buddy?
I've got a question. Let's talk about just the other side of the age of life. You were talking about children. I'm having to deal with mother-in-law, and where they're, as Rick likes to call it, in their wiser years. Well, the wiser years of memories are fading, and be very honest with you, Alzheimer's and dementia. To be more specifically, this kind of information kind of blows me away because I have never heard of any of this brought up as far as when I've had to be able to take my mother-in-law in for a doctor's appointment or my mother in for appointments where they've never asked for any of that type of information. So I guess what I'm trying to be able to find out, how long has this been in effect?
Rhonda?
Either of the ladies.
It's been in effect for many years. Again, I think a lot of times people think of at least the healthcare representative. Again, that's kind of the one I really push because it is so beneficial, even not in end of life, but as you get up in the elderly years as well. My parents live in another state, so it's beneficial for me as well, being long distance, because they wanted me to be involved in their healthcare, at least be able to give that opinion, but it is challenging if you don't have access to that information. So I'm definitely a proponent of healthcare representative. It has been in effect for a long time. And
Rhonda, I have a question directly related to our caller. He spoke of his mother-in-law as well as his own mother. Would they be able to state himself as well as his spouse then, say for the mother-in-law, where they're both listed in case it's just him that takes the mother-in-law? Could they do that?
typically you just want one individual, as Jessica had mentioned, for a lot of different reasons. However, I suppose you could use two individuals.
Yeah, okay. I'm just curious, I think, Roy, that's a great point. When you talk about Alzheimer's and dementia, it gets really difficult because then especially depends how far advanced they're...
It's advanced. So let me put it this way. It is very much advanced.
Yeah, that's really hard.
Especially with my mother-in-law, okay?
Okay.
But, I mean, it's just... I've been listening to the program, and boy, golly, I'll tell you, I must have that likable personality. Who else would be... to be able to do something like that for mother-in-law or father-in-law, you know, but I've never been questioned on all of it.
Wow.
So here again, and I just don't know how to be able to I guess, really figure out what do I do with something like that if I'm ever questioned, because of, and this has been nothing new. I mean, I've been doing this for my mother-in-law for probably 6-7 years, something like that, at least that long.
I would say, Roy, your best bet would probably be to go ahead and connect with whatever facility you generally are taking them to and see if they have documentation or a form for you to be listed as a healthcare rep. It's just going to help you out in the event that they get admitted to the hospital. That way you never get into any issues trying to get those records.
If I could
I've already been down that road. I mean, I've had to admit them.
Oh, wow.
Okay, listen up for a second.
So at any rate, I'll shut up and I'll let you guys talk about that side of it. But I mean, hello, this is very encouraging. It's very educational because I really like that Younger Life show. Someday I'm going to be able to meet the beautiful smile that Rick smiles about every time when he talks about her.
Well, we'd love to have you in. That would
Good
be great.
conversation.
All right, thanks,
Thank
Bud.
you.
All right, Jessica.
Okay, Jessica, yes, please share. I think that Roy brings up some great points and some even some concerns. I cringe a little bit. I can't imagine how much the both of you cringe thinking, eek, how has this not been addressed before now?
So what I had heard was advanced Alzheimer's. So for these forms, the advanced directives to be completed, the patient needs to be of sound mind.
Yes.
So when you're not, I would definitely recommend visiting an attorney.
Okay.
For the
I was going to ask
families.
how that even
Oh,
happens.
that's a great point. I
Yeah.
would never thought about that.
And with him taking her to the physician's office to appointments regularly, obviously they realize probably her state. At that point, realize that he is involved in her care. So it's a little bit different in a physician's office where they know who the providers, who the healthcare, who's helping with their health care.
Right.
So it's a little bit different situation than in a hospital where you walk in and you want copies of a record and we don't know who you are.
Yes.
We don't have that relationship with you. We don't know if you're really involved in the care or you're just trying to obtain copies of your own.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that makes perfect sense. I would certainly say, the sound mind thing is red flag in my head thinking, at what point, say an elderly parent has never addressed any of these issues, even though you might know what their wishes are, there's no documentation of that. What tips can you give us to approach that topic when they are kind of, I hate to say with it, but of sound mind?
Sure.
Because that can be really tricky, especially as it gets more advanced. I mean, when are you sure that they're of sound mind to make it legal? What role does an attorney play then when you contact an attorney if you can't determine if they're of sound mind or not?
It's a very good question, and I think that's a hard one for me to
Yeah.
answer. That's a tough one.
tough.
I would think that at any time if there's any question, we would just recommend family discussion with an attorney.
Okay.
Or even
But-
with the physician. The physician would be the one that would deem whether they're competent or incompetent to
Okay.
make those decisions. So it's really the family physician that knows that patient regularly
Yeah.
and can kind of tell when things are declining and can deem them, we're at the point to where they're unable to make healthcare decisions or any decisions and go down that road. Obviously, it's not a road that's easily traveled, but that's the route that you would go.
That makes sense. All the more reason to encourage all of our listeners and all of our friends and all of our own personal families to try to put some of this stuff in place before
Absolutely
you get
agree.
to that. That's really hard. And just more added stress. I mean, bravo Roy and his wife taking such good care of his parents and in-laws, because that is so stressful all in itself, let alone throw in some of this, that's a big deal. So I appreciate it. I appreciate your guys' information. I know he does too. And thanks a lot for the call, Roy.
All right, Younger Life Live, of course, Mary Anthony, Rick Federici. We, of course, have Rhonda and Jessica. Thank you to the LaPorte Hospital for their wonderful partnership here with Younger Life Live. We're going to be right back. Don't you go away.
Hey guys, watch my new bike trick. Whoa!
Accidents happen. When they do, LaPorte Hospital can help you get on the road to recovery faster. With our 30 minutes or less ER service pledge, we will work to have you initially seen by a medical professional in 30 minutes or less. Less waiting, faster care. The 30 minutes or less ER service pledge at LaPorte Hospital.
Joyeux Noël!
Mele Kalikimaka.
Feliz Navidad!
Disneyzinha.
Hello,
My name is Father Walter Ciesla from St. Stanislaus Kotzgott Church and School here in Michigan City. St. Stanislaus Parish family and wishes you and your family a very Merry Christmas. We invite you to celebrate the birth of our Savior with us this year. On Christmas Eve, we will have a family Mass at 4 o'clock p.m. Our midnight Mass will begin with the singing of Christmas carols at 11 o'clock p.m. and the midnight Mass will be celebrated promptly at 12 o'clock a.m. Following this Mass, we will serve breakfast in the church hall. On Christmas Day, you're welcome to join us for Christmas Mass at 10 o'clock a.m. We hope that your family will be able to share in this joyous season with us. Wesołych świąt Bożego Narodzenia i Szczęśliwego Nowego Roku. Have a very Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year.
Merry Christmas!
We are back with Younger Life Live. Rick Federici, Mary Anthony. It's so wonderful they have Rhonda and Jessica here. What a great show.
I know.
Lots
It's
of great
so much information, honestly. I feel like I hope we're not throwing too much out, but this is important. The biggest thing would be to start the conversation.
Absolutely.
If nothing else, you take it away. At least think about it and start the conversation. I do have to go back to something Roy said, because all these little things, all these little spindles, come off from that. He is talking about primarily his mother-in-law. I mean, being in the biggest decline. When it is an in-law, or what about a step-parent? There's been plenty of cases where someone comes in and once they're, we were going back to the child for a second, but that's what the in-law reminded me of. The step-parent wants to sign, but it might be a different last name. That's kind of a heads up that something's not the same. Their last name different than the child, the person under 18. Does a step-parent have just as much right to access the medical record for a minor?
They do not. The step-parent does not have any rights at all to access the minor's medical records.
That can be hard.
And a lot of times we also, in divorce situations, we will have parents show up and say, well, I'm the custodial parent. And it doesn't matter. Unless the parental rights have been revoked, parents have the equal access to that medical record.
How then, say, divorced couple, say they both remarry, what document would it be? The healthcare rep to ensure that, say, the step mom and the stepdad now, if both parents had remarried, are able to obtain those if they need to? Can they do that?
You really couldn't do a healthcare representative for a minor because it would default to the parents at that point.
Okay.
So it would basically, what would happen in that situation, then let's say, so they're divorced, they both remarried, and the father is needing copies of the child's medical record, then he would fill out an authorization that says, I'm allowing my wife, Sally Joe, to pick up these records.
Perfect.
So it would be on a case-by-case situation. They could not just grant carte blanche at all times.
That makes sense. And, I was just thinking a lot of times, I hate to say, that it would be the stepmom, but, if say that maybe they are the custodial parent, the dad and the stepmom, or they just have them for the summers or something and they need the records, chances are a lot of times it's going to be the mom's going to be the one running around to pick those up. And if it's the stepmom, I think that's such important information that they know. Don't waste everybody's time and get all upset about it. If you plan a little bit in advance. Are there general authorization forms available online that you could print that are kind of across the board for just specific instances where a father could fill that out or a mother could fill that out and say, oh, grandma's going to come? Because I would assume it's the same thing, and a grandparent couldn't come, right?
That is true. That is the same. A grandparent couldn't come and obtain those records either. We do have those forms. We could fax those to you.
Okay.
You just call the main line at the hospital, and we can get those forms faxed to you. I don't believe they're on our website because we're in a transition with our website right now.
Right. Could you give us the phone number?
Yeah, I was gonna say,
Yes, the phone number is 219-326-2361.
Awesome. You had brought up healthcare rep, and you ladies are really educating not only the viewers, but the radio folks. Is there another point where a healthcare rep can be utilized in some other fashion? You know what I'm saying? Something like, or is it kind of, this is what they're
And, with you have so much experience.
You do.
Yeah, I mean, just even the step parent thing was great, and the in-laws and the grandparents.
Yes.
Any other little cases where you could think of, the college thing, especially for you, Rick? I mean, that's right where you're at right now in life. It's so important. Anything else like that you can think of that a healthcare rep kind of?
I think a healthcare rep is also a good situation if you're in the process of a divorce.
Okay.
Because you're in the process of divorce. Until that divorce is final, then the spouse is the one that would make
that's
those
true.
decisions. So you really want to designate a healthcare representative, because I'm not sure you would want your soon-to-be ex making those decisions.
Determining whether or not to turn off life support.
Just depends.
Yeah, that's probably not the
situation's
best.
different.
That's probably not the best situation.
I'm glad
but a
you two
good
ladies are
point.
laughing.
It's true though, because they would automatically default. That's
Yeah.
wow. Okay, that's very, very good. And Jessica, with you, how do you approach the topic with the patients? You said when they're admitted, is it a family discussion or is it just with the patient?
So, sometimes it's just with the patient. Sometimes they, like I said, they take the forms, they discuss with their family. We do give a big push in the ICU. My case manager in the ICU has those discussions over and over and over again, because at any point, I mean, obviously their health is pretty critical when they're in that unit, and if they are in the capacity to make that decision, they really should make that decision.
That makes perfect
Do you
sense.
think that there's any point in time, if any of you ladies want to throw this out there, when you would discuss this personally? We waited till our daughters were a little bit older, but we've always been involved with their life. We've always been up front and center from high school, even from their freshman year on. We're a very open family about everything life.
Yeah.
So what would
It's
you?
important. Well, I wanted to ask you both, was talking about being open. How does a DNR relate, a do not resuscitate order? How does that relate and tie into these advanced directives? And should that be something people just generally make a decision about, or is that specific to being admitted to the hospital? Or unless you're chronically ill, I'm sorry, that too.
So a DNR is an order. It's a physician order,
Okay.
stating that if you stop breathing or if your heart stops, that CPR will not be done. In a perfect world, this is a decision that you'd want to make before you got to that point in an emergency. But sometimes the patient will come into the hospital and it's indicated that they have a poor prognosis and maybe they are a full code. Then at that time, the physician talks with the family and that can be determined at that time. So there's a couple ways that it can be done.
So wow, that's kind of interesting. That DNR you just spoke of, again, something new I'm learning about. So something happens to me, God forbid, and I'm at that point. I'm like, I don't want anything to go
Right,
further
it's
than
different. Right, it's different than the living will in the aspect of saying I want nutrition or hydration. It's different than that. It's stating if someone were to I don't want to say stop breathing. Perfect example that you're just not. You literally don't do anything.
That's what I'm saying.
That's
I want the
really
anything.
different.
I want
We
that.
want it
Try
all.
it.
Bring
I
it
want
on.
I
Do
love
not-
life. Thank you, Lord. I don't want to be sitting there.
not.
You see
Yeah.
those Hallmark movies allegedly, and you're like, you're above it. You're the angel. It's like, I just
Yeah.
want one more chance.
Yeah.
Please.
So I mean, it's
You can tell we
it's
did
good to
yesterday
talk
during the
about.
snow, right?
We call that a full code.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, the opposite of DNR.
So I mean,
Wow.
it's important to discuss, especially if someone knows that they may be, already at end of life care for whatever reason, and then have that DNR. Would you distribute that the same way as far as that form, that order itself? Would that be distributed to? Would you carry that on your person?
Typically, that's really done in the hospital while they're in
Really?
an inpatient setting. I
Okay.
have seen it done outside, but more often than not, that occurs when they're actually in-house.
Okay.
Or maybe they're on hospice.
Yes.
Recently, my father passed away, and he went on hospice, and so he was a DNR. And so they kind of explain what that means and what all's involved in that.
In situations such as sending a patient via ambulance from the hospital that is a DNR in the hospital, and maybe they're going home for hospice, or they're transferring to an inpatient hospice facility, wherever they may be going, we'll have a form that's an out-of-house DNR that states if something were to happen to this patient, their wishes are that you
see.
do nothing.
I see.
A nursing home. That
Yes,
would be another
that's what I was
transferring
thinking
back
in my
and
mind.
forth.
Thinking nursing home.
Sure.
Even a rehab.
The patient's a DNR and that is their wish, we would make sure the proper
Okay.
paperwork goes with them so that there's no miscommunication in the ambulance on their way there.
I see. There are some just general questions that I wanted to make sure we fit in before the end of the hour. Do any of these advanced directives need to be renewed at any point?
Well, I think that, you always want to review them to make sure that, they're how you want them. and nothing has changed.
Okay.
So you can renew them if your wishes change at any point in time. So it would be a recommendation of mine that you do review them.
I'm curious, for both of you, personal opinion wise, would you recommend, especially you make them early in life, ideally, which is what everybody would wish. Would you review those every 10 years, unless there's a major change, death of the person you appointed, or divorce or something like that? I mean, other than that, would you say every 10 years, maybe rethink about it? And do you have to do a whole new form, or can you just reinitial the one you have? How does that work?
You would do a new form.
Okay.
But as for time frame, I don't have a recommendation on that. I think it would be any time you wish for those to change, you would want to complete a new form.
Or a major life event.
Yeah.
Can
Absolutely.
I ask a question here? If someone wanted to donate their organs or do something like that, can you ladies expand on that? Anybody? Because I'm kind of curious. Because
Is that listed?
A lot of states have it on the back of their license.
Yeah, that is perfect. Organ donation, cremation, burial, any of those wishes, are those actually put into an advance directive?
Honestly, I've never seen that done, but there is a spot on the form, and I suppose you can write whatever you want. Of course, we wouldn't be addressing burial or things like that in the hospital, but...
And typically, most of your advance directives, like your healthcare representative and such, ends at the point of death.
Wow.
So once the patient dies, the healthcare representative is no longer valid.
Really?
Same thing with power of attorney. Most people don't realize that.
Really? I was going to ask you then if the power of attorney is where that information would be. Where would someone put that? Is that just based on hoping that the family honors the wishes? Really?
So you really want to file that with your attorney and obviously have that discussion with your attorney and your family and hope that they will fulfill your
That's
wishes.
an eye opener.
It
That
is.
last part was a big.
Do you know I had?
I'm sure a lot of people.
I personally have an aunt that is the uncle is my blood relative, and so my aunt's mother is no relation to myself, but she was an only child, and that woman her preference was to be cremated, and my aunt really did not want to honor that. She did, because that was her mother's wish, but she really struggled with that, and there was no real documentation of that or anything. I know my aunt personally voiced that to all of us, that she was really struggling with that. She knew that was her mother's wish, and her mother told many people that it wasn't just my aunt. But I was curious to know if so it would actually, regardless of being in writing or not, does boil down to hoping that your family does honor that.
In a situation like that, I mean, if it was in writing and the hospital had it and they passed away in the hospital, then obviously we would try to honor that. We would encourage the family.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not sure if we'd ever get into that battle if a patient
Agreed.
wrote something, and
That's hard.
because you have to have the family member sign for the organ donation and all that, and so
That's a tricky one.
that would be Jessica's ballpark.
That's really tough. I mean, organ donation in general is an amazing thing, but is a very difficult. It's a very private decision for yourself, but it's difficult for the family to honor that either way. I mean, it could go either way. Maybe your family says donate when the patient really didn't want to. You can't, and I mean, vice versa too. It's difficult.
Aren't you in a situation too? And this is just how I understand. I may be way off, but if you do some type of organ donation, it needs to be done now at the point of.
It's
when
certainly
death,
on a time.
just to keep the organs
You are on a time
functioning.
clock.
You totally are.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have an external organization that comes in and handles that from that point. So they make sure all the rules and regs are followed.
Awesome.
They do an evaluation to see if they're able to donate. Not everyone can donate based on their diseases or how they expired. Or
They speak to the
condition.
family. They do all those conversations.
Wow.
These
So much
ladies are
information.
wonderful. Absolutely unbelievable.
Do you have any tips for us on how to begin that conversation with our parents or our grandparents,
Or even our
children, our grown children? I think
Key.
maybe they don't even understand the complexity of it all at 18 or 20. But how do we approach that without just saying this is what we're doing? You know what I mean? Any tips for us on that?
I know we approached it recently with my father. My father passed away in July, and it was a conversation that went something like, when we get to that point, what do you want done? We want to honor your wishes, but we need to know what they are.
Yeah.
And kind of let's talk through some of that. And so we were able to, extract exactly what he wanted to transpire. And when we first started the conversation, it was more of, it doesn't matter, it doesn't matter. But then the further we got down the road, the more he was very opinionated in what he wanted. And so that made it, while it was very difficult to go through that process, it made it much easier that he was very definitive in what he wanted. So then you're just following the marching orders, essentially. Not a lot of room for discussion, not a lot of room for debate. It was just go through the motions.
I always admire that in people. If someone passes away and already has literally everything planned to the detail, I admire that quality, because I think how depressing, one, to have to face, but also what a respectful thing for your family, because they're already having such a hard time to not have to have either, I don't even want to say the arguments, just that emotional weight of trying to make all those decisions lets you just take care of yourself and that grieving part. So I think that's a really respectful
I've
thing.
seen a lot of families go through a lot of pain because they don't know what their loved one wanted.
Yeah.
They don't know if they're making the right decision, and that person can't speak for themselves. So really, you are really helping your family make those decisions by telling them exactly what you want.
I think so too.
That was an absolutely awesome kind of a final thought.
That's
in
a great.
terms of
That's a great way.
to wrap the show
That's a
up.
great way to bring it up to your kids, and even your college kids, to let them understand. If you know, your daughter wiped out on rollerblades, this
Right.
summer, so, and it was pretty bad. Thinking, oh man, she's gonna probably need some X-rays. If that were to happen at school, away at college, if you already had the healthcare rep already in place, the states you or your wife could access those records, it would make things a lot quicker if she were to call you and say, this happened, I had these x-rays done off campus, and you just be able to get them and set up any follow-ups. I mean, it just makes sense. It's just not something that we know enough about, and I'm hopeful that after today, at least a lot of people will think about it a little bit more and maybe, have those conversations. So.
A great education, ladies. You are
Yes.
absolutely wonderful, intelligent, and we so appreciate both of you being
you.
here
We
today.
really do appreciate it.
I know we've got a couple of seconds here. We've got some great shows lined up for our final live week.
Tomorrow we have Katie Sarver back, who we love, and we're discussing New Year's resolutions, whether they're good, the bad, the ugly, and really kind of kicking our own wellness into play during the winter months. Sometimes it's a time people say, that'll wait till after winter, but it's important. So she's going to join us and talk about that.
Awesome. On behalf of us all at Gerard Media LLC, and of course, all of you here listening and viewing Younger Life Live, I'm Rick Federici.
I'm Mary Anthony. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you, ladies.
AM 1420, WIMS, Michigan City, a Gerard Media Company station.